What's up, everybody? Welcome back inside the Woody Hayes Athletic Center for another practice report presented by Byers Auto. You know the crew by now. That's the 40-year vet Tim May. That's Andy Backstrom. Fellas, a lot to take from this large batch of Buckeyes we just talked to here at the Woody on this nice cold Wednesday night on the indoor. I think the Buckeyes were outside for practice.
Yeah, they were.
It's cold outside. Ohio State's taking advantage of the cold weather and going outside, Tim. Big takeaways from hearing from this.
That's not the way I'd play it, but go ahead.
Big takeaways from hearing from this group of Buckeyes tonight.
Well, number one, if Tommy Eichenberg were an animal, Steel Chambers said he'd probably be a platypus, so I took that away from that. You know, they're roommates along with Kate Stover.
Yes.
What I took away from the conversation with Marvin Harrison Jr. is his favorite catch. That little toe tap last week is among his favorite catches this year, maybe his best, maybe his favorite. And just the way he described it, this all happened in a heartbeat, and he's thinking about all kinds of different things, including keeping his left foot up while he gets his right foot down. That's one of the most amazing catches I've ever seen. I think you guys agree.
Yes.
But then forward looking, they realize that Maryland, talking to Steel Chambers, they realize Maryland can be a pretty potent offensive team if they get things going on Saturday. So that's like a little preview about the game. And then another thing that stood out to me was Dallin Hayden is the same guy that we talked to. I think we talked to him in preseason camp, didn't we? If not, we talked to him a little bit later. But he is the same guy now as he was then, at least in conversation. And this is a guy, you got a feeling, based on what Ryan Day has been telling us this week, that one of those top two running backs is probably going to be available on Saturday.
Yeah.
We'll see which one it is, but if that isn't the case, Dallin Hayden may be the starting running back for Ohio State on Saturday at Maryland, a freshman out of Memphis, and he seems almost nonplussed by it. I mean, he seems ready for it. I mean, that's what really stands out. Just about he's just an even-keeled kind of guy when you talk to him. I don't know if you agree or not.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but God, he oozes talent, and that's what stood out to me about another conversation with him.
Also talked, Andy, to Josh Fryer, talked to Xavier Johnson, a couple of defensive tackles. A lot to learn here. What are you taking away after hearing from the Buckeyes on Wednesday night?
Xavier Johnson talked a lot about how it was difficult, bouncing back between wide receiver and running back, but he feels like now he actually really likes that. He likes being able to do both. When he's playing receiver in practice, he's thinking about the running back situation. When he's playing running back in practice, he's thinking about what's going on at wide receiver. In the game, he says it's cut and dry. He knows what he's doing, and he's focused on that position. But he's seeing the field as this, multi-dimensional player, which helps him understand the offense. It helps him understand defenses. And he's embracing that role as, the Swiss Army knife or the guy that can do it all, whatever you want to call it. And now he really likes that. But earlier in his career, it was something that was challenging for him to go back and forth. So I think that was really fascinating.
Yeah, and what stood out too, the conversation with him is he pretty much still meets with the receivers. He does most of his running back work actually on the field where, they run the tracks, where you go on this play, where you go on that play, the path you want to follow, etc. But he still pretty much meets with the wide receivers, and that's interesting to me because really, if you kind of get it down, if you're instinctive enough as a running back and you kind of understand what this offense is trying to do, that makes a lot of sense to me because wide receiver is more of a technical situation. You got to be at a certain place at a certain time with your hands open. But it's just, I'm telling you, this guy, I brought it up to him. You might have been standing there, Andy. He's not doing this for some 8th place team in like the Big 12 or something. He's on the number 2 team in the country, and he delivered big time last week, just like he did against Notre Dame. And like he said, he's thought about that.
Yeah.
It's like he made the right choice to stick around and not leave, and when he could have, And so, yeah, what an interesting fellow.
For me, another guy who I think made a big impact on Saturday was Josh Fryer. Really enjoyed talking to him. I thought it was hilarious that somebody tried to ask him if he was starting on Saturday.
That was me.
I know. And he said, I I don't know. I think he does know.
I thought he did. I thought he basically said he didn't expect to start on Sunday.
Yeah, but it was more of a, what do I say here? How do I answer this?
Yeah.
These guys aren't dumb. They know how to answer this.
DeJuan Jones is available. He's going to start. I mean, that's not a bulletin.
And that's what I'm saying. You know, the offensive line situation looks pretty clear cut. But Josh Fryer in that not mop-up duty, but spot starting duty, got a very valuable start under his belt that will be very beneficial for him in the future. You know, you never know when he's going to be called upon, and for him to go out there and kind of manhandle things was impressive, I thought. Even against an Indiana team that you chronicled pretty well is terrible on defense. But for Josh Fryer to be in his first start, that's a big step for a guy, Andy, who, you know, needed a start under his belt.
Yeah, absolutely. And he also said he wanted to prove that when guys like Byers Johnson and DeJuan Jones leave here and go on to the NFL, he can step in too and actually have talent. There's not going to be this huge drop-off. So it was kind of an audition for him to show the coaching staff, but also the fan base that, hey, look, we can reload here, and I'm part of that reload.
I'm more interested in when is that book coming out chronicling the what is it?
The preview?
Yeah.
What
was that book coming
Indiana.
out chronicling how bad this Indiana defense
I had
is?
about 1,000 words on lettermenrow.com.
I know, exactly.
Talking about Indiana.
No, I'm messing with you. But it's like saying the sun is hot, you know. Okay, next chapter. But, yeah, I mean, what I like about Josh Fryer is, like I told you guys, we talked about this earlier this week. He's sort of a little bit of a legend back where he's from, over in Indiana.
Yeah.
You know, his dad played for Indiana. His dad played for Indiana during that time when Bill Mallory was there, and they beat Ohio State 2 years in a row in 87 and 88.
Tim,
and it's
the
interesting.
darkest day in Ohio
State history in 87. 88 was just like, oh my goodness. Like I wrote, a new day has dawned in the Big Ten. That's what I wrote the next day. After that ridiculous 41-7 loss or whatever by Ohio State, it was awful. But anyway, it gave him bragging rights, within his family, that not only did he beat Indiana, but he was the right tackle all day in the
he's got
300-plus yard rushing performance.
He's got 3 wins over Indiana now, and his dad
but he was
had
a
2.
Starting right tackle in this one. I mean, this was big.
Oh yeah, for sure, and
He's now part of the big time Fryer Club.
Yeah, and he'll still be used if he doesn't play in that Bison grouping that we've talked about a little bit now. Tim, I did think it was funny. You asked him if he had talked to Keith Byers because he wears that 41.
I was being smart aleck. I did that on Keith Byers' behalf.
But he looks good in that 41. He looked good at right tackle, as well. Another lesson that I'll take away from this, it's a little scattered show. These guys are focused on Maryland. I know it's easy to come out here and say that, but the message from inside the team room has been received. I can confidently say that. These guys aren't completely just looking past Maryland at Michigan, maybe like the fan base is, maybe even like we are a little bit. But these guys are pretty focused on the task at hand. Would you guys agree?
I think so, and they need to be. This Maryland team, they've lost a couple games in a row. They still have 6 wins. They're bowl eligible for the 2nd year in a row, and the offense, as Tim was saying earlier, is pretty legit, especially when you look at the Big Ten. There's not many potent offensive teams right now. Maryland's up there in a lot of statistical categories, and Talia has been hurt, re-injured that knee against Indiana, and the last couple of games hasn't been great. He's been taking a lot of sacks, accuracy's been down. But he's talked about this week about recognizing his mistakes, needing to get the ball out quicker. He's been sacked 12 times in the last 2 games, so it's not like they're lost on what needs to get better too. And I think they could put up a fair number of points against Ohio State. It's not going to be a rollover game like Indiana was.
Yeah, and the other thing that Ohio State's got going for them is the last time they played at Maryland, their head coach was basically offensive coordinator, play caller, quarterback coach Ryan Day, and that was not expected to be the game. It turned out to be 52-51 when Maryland misses a 2-point conversion pass. Guy, if he just waited another split second to get his feet under him, that's neither here nor there. He didn't.
He was wide open.
Oh my goodness! You talk about a defense needing an overhaul. That's the first thing he did. Was hire Jeff Hafley, your old buddy, as the defensive coordinator the next year. For the next year when he took over as head coach, Ryan Day. But that one sticks in. I know sticks in Ryan Day's mind. You know, just when you take some things for granted, you can have a team sneak up on you in college football. Just look around the country. It's happened this year many times. But this is a beat-up Maryland team, like you talked about. I mean, Talia Tungavaloa is beat up compared to the way he looked earlier in the year when he looked really, he looked like that, like everybody talked about being the younger brother of and almost as good as earlier this year. He doesn't really look like that now. And, of course, last week they got shut out by Penn State in inclement weather, but they still got shut out. Yep. I mean, I'm not even sure they even sniffed at a score. So it's really – but I'm continuing to dovetail. What stood out to me last week, with the exception of one play, and even that play he was there to compete, Cam Brown, I asked him, I said, did you feel as free-flowing as you felt, this year? And he said, yes, last week against Indiana. Cornerback Cam Brown, because he's obviously dealt with some things all year, and if they get Denzel Burke back like they expect to, because I mean obviously he was a late scratch last week,
very late, and
you got Jordan Hancock now. I mean they can put
coming on.
J.K. Johnson's gotten some experience, both good and bad, but he's got some experience. I think Ohio State feels about as good about its cornerback room as it has in a while from a depth standpoint, and that's key these next couple of games for sure.
They even got Jair Brown a little bit of run out there on Saturday, which is good for him too, because he looks like a guy who's going to emerge eventually. Soon. Maybe
at the start against Wisconsin.
Maybe soon. So a lot to take away from these Buckeyes here in the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. We're going to wrap things up though and get on to Friday to bold predictions, then get on to College Park to watch Ohio State and Maryland at 3:30 in College Park. Tim May, the 40-year vet, he'll be there. Andy Backstrom, he'll be there. Spencer Holbrook, that's me, I'll be there. Full coverage of Ohio State, Maryland, lettermenrow.com. You can get it for $10 until next August. That's a hell of a deal, fellas.
Yes, it is.
Come join us, the Lettermen Lounge message board. We'll see you over there, and we'll see you in College Park on Saturday.